All right, Morgan, if you were watching this, then we hope that you were victorious in your race. Because right now you're watching, it's probably 8 o'clock. It's a good thing that you're not just going to bed or watching TV. You should be doing mathematics, so good for you. Way to be a proper student. Okay, guys, today we're going to use quadratic form. Now, I'm not going to do really complex problems here. I've decided that we're just going to really focus on problems that can be factored. So I thought about the quadratic form piece, and I thought it's okay. Let me first ask you this. Quadratic form. You guys have learned about quadratics, and for example, x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Don't write that down, but that is a quadratic type of equation, is it not? The prefix quad means how many? 4. So why on earth is this quadratic? Do you see 4 anywhere? Why would they call it quad? Why not bidratic? Or I don't know. You don't know, do you? It factors. It factors to x minus 2 times x minus 1, correct? And if you were to FOIL that out, you get x squared minus x minus 2x plus 1. How many pieces? 4. That's why it was originally called quadratic, because there were 4 terms as it was composed. That's why quadratic. So some of these have quadratic form to them. And quadratic form can often be identified by looking at the largest exponent, so in this case 4. It is double the 2, and then you have x to the 0 on the end. It is quadratic, and it does factor. What times what is x to the 4th? X squared. What two things multiply to positive 36 that add a negative 13? Negative 9, negative 4, very good. All right. Do those factor? How so? Difference of 2 squares? So we have 4 solutions. We know by the fundamental theorem of algebra that we are supposed to have exactly 4 solutions. We do. We have x equals plus or minus 3, and we have x is equal to plus or minus 2. Those are our 4 solutions. So basically everything we've had during this past 2 weeks has been review. This is review as well. I know that you guys covered stuff like that. Was it as common as the others? Maybe not. We're going to cover stuff that maybe wasn't review, but so you maybe have some new material to get to. Letter B doesn't factor the way it is. I put that on there. It does require the use of the quadratic formula, but we're not going to do that. We'll just change the problem. We'll put a plus here, and now it does factor. Okay? So I won't give us those type of problems. We'll steer clear of them, so as to not take up too much time. So here we go. We got 3x to the 4th minus 4x squared plus 1 equals 0. It does have quadratic form to it. 3x squared times x squared is 3x to the 4th. It's a plus 1, a minus in the middle, so I really only have one option, minus 1, minus 1. If I check this, does that give me a 4x squared in the middle? A minus 4x squared? Negative 1x squared, negative 3x squared makes negative 4x squared. So yes, that does work. Now, as opposed to factoring even more, we know that this is the difference of 2 squares. But once it is factored, you can take each binomial and simply solve them equal to 0. So watch this one. X squared minus 1 equals 0. Let's just solve that. We would add 1 to both sides. X squared is equal to 1. Square root both sides. X is equal to plus or minus 1. Now you say, well, I could have gotten that if I just factored it. Well, fine. But what about this one? This doesn't factor, does it? Not the difference of 2 squares. If there would be a 4 in front, that would be different, but there's a 3. So we say 3x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. I add the 1. 3x squared is equal to 1. Divide by 3. X squared is equal to 1/3. Now what to do, what to do, what to do? Square root. How do I square root a fraction? How do I square root a fraction? Square root of the top is 1. So x is equal to plus or minus 1 on top. What's in the denominator? Square root of 3. We cannot have a square root in the denominator. I rationalize the denominator by multiplying the top and the bottom by the square root of 3, and I get plus or minus square root of 3 over 3. Done and done. What do you think? Kenneth says, this is so easy, I could do it in my sleep. Mr. Gens, you're putting me to sleep. Give me something more difficult. All right. Don't have to yell. Wow. All right, let's try something a little bit more challenging. Does C have a quadratic form? What do you think? Yes? No? Maybe? Not? Not sure? It does. Here's how I can tell. 4/3 is twice 2/3. If you look at this exponent, it is twice that exponent. Remember, x squared minus 2x plus 1, that's quadratic. I have 2, 1, and x to the 0. This exponent out front is twice the exponent in the middle, and I have x to the 0 on the end. Well, same thing here. 4/3 is twice 2/3, and I have x to the 0 on the end. So this is definitely still quadratic. And this does factor. Tell me what times what gives me x to the 4/3. X to what? 2/3. Very good, Bandy. Score 8 goals. No? Maybe you should work on that. All right. X to the 2/3, x to the 2/3. That will make x to the 4/3. Great. And because I have the 2/3, that will give me my 2/3 in the middle. What two numbers multiply -4 that add to -3? -4, +1. I now need to solve both of these equal to 0. So x to the 2/3 minus 4 is equal to 0. And x to the 2/3 plus 1 is equal to 0. I will do the minus 4 equals 0 first. I add 4, so x to the 2/3 is equal to 4. What to do, what to do, what to do. When we are solving and we are getting x, and we solve for x, x equals, let's say x is equal to 5, what power is x to? What power is it? Yeah, first power. So we don't need an x to the 2/3, we need an x to the first power. So what would I do to make that to the first power? I'm going to take it to a power. 3/2, very good. Raise both sides to the 3/2. That will create an x to the 1 power. 4 to the 3/2. How do I do that? Sticks. That's a good idea. Is that, can I rewrite that like this? 4 to the 3rd square root? But excellent guess, Savvy. I'm happy that you made that guess. I don't know where you got 6, but it was a good effort. What's 4 to the 3rd? 4 times 4 is 16. Times 4 more is 64. Square root of 64 is plus or minus 8. Beautiful. Let's try the other one. X to the 2/3 is equal to -1. I raise each side to what power? 3/2. On one side, I'm left with x. The other side, I have -1 to the 3/2. That would be the square root of -1 to the 3rd power. What is -1 to the 3rd power? -1. Square root of -1? Plus or minus I. Yes! You're so smart. How many solutions do I have? 4. There you go. Kind of tricky. Be good to have some homework problems about that so you can practice it, right? That's why I gave them to you. Okay, so we have one more on this page, then we flip over to the next page, and we won't get through the whole thing, but we'll get enough so that tomorrow you can basically have a whole work day. We will do one word problem in class, and you'll have the rest of the day to work. Study guide the next day. You can work on the study guide tonight. I would probably get started sooner than later. Square root of x minus 5, fourth root of x plus 6. This doesn't look like it has quadratic form because you have a square root here, and so you know how is that 4 twice that? I don't know. Let's write it in fractional exponents to show that it does in fact have quadratic form. This would be x to what power? 1/2. Good. Minus 5x to the 1/4. Good. Plus 6 equals cero. Cero is Spanish for 0. Well, hello. Top secret. I'm super important. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so is this quadratic in form? Yes, because 1/2 is twice 1/4. So we're good to go. Let's give it a shot. A for the day. What times what is x to the 1/2? X to the 1/4. Good job. What two numbers multiply positive 6 add a negative 5? Minus 3, minus 2. Good Danny Mondial. He's a track captain. We have super smart people as track captains. Now we add 3, add 2, right? So I'll go x to the 1/4 minus 3 equals 0, and x to the 1/4 minus 2 equals 0. Solve each. I have x to the 1/4 is equal to 3. What do I do to both sides? I got to take it to a power. What power? 4th power. So if you have to take something to second, we say you square it, right? You take something to third, you cube it, right? So what would be 4th? A hypercube? Have you ever seen it? A 4th dimensional cube? Remind me, I'll show you guys. Okay, so x is equal to 81. I'm going to hypercube it. That sounds ridiculous. X to the 1/4 is equal to 2. Same process. We take each one to the 4th power. What is 2 to the 4th power? Yes. We have 2 solutions. X is 81 and x is 16. Any questions? Flip. A and B are super easy. C and D are a little bit more difficult. E equals mc squared. If you were asked to solve for C, could you do it? How? Divide by m. Good. So E over m is equal to c squared. Then what? Square both sides. So c is equal to the square root of E over m. You could write it plus or minus. If we were actually doing this chemistry, we would know whether it needs to be plus or minus depending on what, energy. Can energy be negative? Okay. Negative energy. Do you exude negative energy? Okay, all right. Energy is only positive, I guess. Okay, R is equal to TmG over Q squared. Solve for M. What are you going to do first? q squared. So q squared times r is equal to tmg. You divide both sides by? Good, tg. Q squared times r over tg is equal to m. Megan Boss is saying, please, Mr. Gens, give me something more difficult. You're putting me to sleep. Let's try something harder. Let's solve for x. And we will end with problem C and D. Why is it harder to solve for x in C and D? What makes these more difficult? Okay, there's two x's, and one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. You have to follow these steps. I get tired of grading these as people get them wrong on the test. I want you to get these right. So you got to follow this step-by-step procedure. So I just told you that you're going to have one of these problems on the test. Don't get it wrong. First, let's just cross multiply. I cross multiply, what do I have on the left-hand side? 2px minus 2r, good. Equals, what's on the right-hand side? 3rx minus 12. Good. So first step is I just distribute everything through, okay? Second step, get everything with x's goes on one side, and everything without x's goes on another side, okay? So these have x's, so I need them all on one side. So I'm going to write it as 2px minus 3rx equals 2r minus 12. Everybody okay? So now I have all the x's, everything with x's on one side, everything without x's on the other side. Now I can do something very special. Do you see? Starts with an F, rhymes with actor. Factor, very good. So, factor, I take out an x. When I take out that common factor x, I'm left with 2p minus 3r. Now I can solve for x. What do I now do to both sides? Divide off my 2p minus 3r. Divide off my 2p minus 3r. And when we do, we get x is equal to 2r minus 12 over 2p minus 3r. So, step by step, write it as write it without the fractions, distribute everything through, gather x's on one side, factor out the x, and divide. Okay? You should be able to get through most of your assignment. Question. You could. But if you take out a 2, can you take out a 2 on the bottom? No, if you could take out a 2 on the bottom, then you would take out a top as well so that they could cancel. But nothing's going to cancel, so we don't really need to factor it. We only factor to try to cancel stuff. So we'll pick up with D, and we'll do the one word problem. You'll have the rest of the time to work. Do you want your study guide now? Okay, I will hand that to you. Morgan, we hope you won. Bye-bye.